This is planning for Drupal design. We've got some people coming in, still coming in. Okay. So my name is Dante Taylor. I'm a creative director at Media Current, and you can find me at Theme Master on Twitter, or you can retweet this session at Media Current handle. So I'm gonna jump right in. So one of the things about preparing for a Drupal design or just really working with your client is managing the relationship. How to get that idea to its, how to sell it to your, to your client or to your prospect. And it's important that you understand, know your client. And there are 4 types of clients that I'm going to identify here. And these are like rough archetypes. A lot of times it's, these archetypes are mixed in to one person, but there are 4 basic types: the turtles, the dolphins, the whales, and the sharks. So these are the client types. Now, turtles, they tend to collect as much information as possible. They're like slow to make decisions. They analyze, and they reanalyze everything. And the way to really sell a project to them or get through the process is to set some type of deadline to force them to make a decision. The second type of client is a dolphin. Now, dolphins, everyone likes dolphins. They're the, I call them, they're like the feel, felt, found. They work on the feelings. They like stories. You have to tell them, paint them a beautiful story. They like to have that relationship. And all these different types of people here, they could be in one person and people, but they tend to lean more towards, one of these personality archetypes. So that is very important because that determines how you need to present your information to them or sell the project to them. But they prefer to be guided. These type of people, they need to be guided through the process every step of the way. Again, they value relationships. The third person are whales. And whales, just like it implies, they're the type, they see the big picture. They're not really concerned with the minor details. You don't have to, get into the fine points. You're looking to just give them broad strokes, walk them through. They're heavily influenced by their peer group, meaning that, in other words, they want to compete. They want to be the best have the best of the best. They want to have the biggest, the best house or the biggest, the best car, that type of thing. And they're a whale type. So you just want to give them the up front, the most popular offering you have up front, because that's what they tend to base their decisions around. And the last client is sharks. Now, sharks are natural born predators. They have not had to do much to evolve over time. They really have maintained their apex predator. They maintain their position for a long time, and their personality type is they're naturally leaders. They have done most of the research up front. So the only reason why you're even there is because you have some insider information that they otherwise couldn't find online or they couldn't get to. So that's why you're there. You don't really want to sell these people. They pretty much, you give them information, they're going to make a decision, up or down, right or left, but don't try to force them or pressure sell them, anything like that. Now, all this is important for building a strong plan, Drupal plan. So, like I said, it's here's the important fact. To have a successful Drupal project, you must understand who you're working with and how they communicate. That's a lot of times people think Drupal is all about just the technical part and okay, what module do I get? What color do I pick or what theme do I get? It's really about how you engage your client, how you communicate with them, and all this leads into really having a successful Drupal launch. So, and planning, this is part of your plan that you have to consider, identifying your clients and the people on the team, and also who you are as a person, how you relate to them. So the next step is the life cycle. So, and you found online there's a lot of different paradigms on how to go through a life cycle. I'm just going to, I like to simplify things, so it's easy to understand. So you have, first you discover. This is when you have, we're going to talk about each step in the next slide, but first you do the client call and you find out really what the business is all about. Those are the talks. Then you do the design. Then you do the testing, which is a lot of time is this last step is not really taken seriously because people are more concerned with discovering design. I got it done. I'm gonna put it out in the market. Testing comes way after. Well, testing should be all a part of each individual phase as you move along. I kind of broke it down. I'm big on sayings. There was a man who said, if you have only 8 hours to cut down the tree, you should spend the first 7 sharpening your axe. So and Abraham Lincoln said that. And basically what that implies is that spend the bulk of your time trying to figure out where that person is coming from. So when you execute, you don't have to reiterate, or you don't have to you can focus on fixing the problems as opposed to, wasting a bunch of time miscommunicating. Oh, I really didn't mean that. And you're going to have, your client and you may change your mind. They may change their mind, but that's okay. But you want to focus on continuously developing, really what they're after. So, the main takeaway is that, in order to have a successful Drupal project, you must ask the right questions at the right time and in the right order. That's very important while putting together your plan of attack. Using personas. This is a very important part of developing a strategy for having great design. Personas are basically a way to it's just like it's very much like the 4 that I talked about at the beginning of the session. The dolphins, the whales, the sharks. It's talking to your clients. It's an imaginary character that you put together. You and your marketing team and your client, you put together because you're trying to speak to a particular type of person or audience, a group of people, and by putting together this persona, I'm going to give you a good example, you get an idea of exactly who you need to communicate to in the process. You find out what motivates them, what their goals are. You find out what you may need to do to accomplish their goals. You get a range. And this helps really in the creative process and also helps your client. This is the most important. Your client get focused on what they really want out of this design project. And I wrote an article about personas there as well, and I'll post this so everybody can get it after the meeting. Now, look, there's thousands of different types of persona styles. I just showed you one, a little small snippet, but use your imagination. I mean, really think about. It's just like sales. A designer is nothing more than a visual sales person. I mean, that's really what our jobs are, is to sell you something visually, and put together your plan, detail this out as much as you can, because you don't know that one little detail may be the thing that unlocks that to make that particular project successful. So, be creative and find your own particular style of how you want to tell the story. So the most important thing is to know your target audience and know how they think. That's planning. Really understand who you're talking to. And part of understanding who you're talking to is creating user stories. User stories are, everyone has a story, meaning everyone has goals, things that they want to do when they get to your site or your particular destination. You know, it's a way to document these individual tasks. Like, you know, it may be I want to register and communicate easily with like-minded people on the site. That could be a story, and then those are all small stories. And by capturing these stories and putting them in a logical order, you get an idea of what your end product should be. And this is something that's been used in user-centered design for a very long time. You know, and it changes over time. But at the end of the day, you you want to continuously make sure this is how you capture your you know what you want your potential archetype to be attracted to, or how you want them to use the site. And this is an example. Again, there's thousands of ways that you can, lay this out. I just randomly picked something on the internet and say, look, this is a really good example of how you can lay out a user story document. You really want to get detailed. So the important thing is, know your audience. Have a concrete plan to allow users to easily complete their goals. Pretty much. Communicating this design. Now, there's some debates over which one is better, or using wireframes is old, and use prototypes. See, me, I'm a person that I use whatever tool one works with the budget, because I live in the real world, and not everyone can have a long, drawn out, design process or discovery process. So, use your tools. Wireframing wireframing and prototyping allows you to fail and fail cheaply. That's a part of the planning. You don't want to start just right out building it, and thinking about how the data structure is going to be, and going through that part up front. You want to just build something, test it out, paper test it. I don't know if you're paper testing, but you want to put it before people, see how it works, see if your assumptions are correct, and refine it. It doesn't matter if you use waterfall process or more agile process. Make it interactive as much as possible, and find out really what if the user stories need to be changed to make a better design. And this is a project, by the way, I'm working on at the moment. I just threw that in. This is like one of my internal wireframes we do at Media Current, that we are trying to work with the client to give them an idea of, is this what you meant by when you said this? And this is a way to visually show it. One note, this is a little more, this is like a medium fidelity type of wireframe. I mean, I like to throw a little bit of design in there. Like, I focus on the geometry. Like, this is on a grid, and I focus on the geometry. I don't get into texture and tone until the design part. But it's good to focus on the geometry, because you get a real idea of how things are going to be placed. And also, everyone, if everyone wants a little bit of eye candy, it helps you sell the design, when you're in a conversation. So, like I said, the debate on which tools is the best is not about the tool. It's really not about the tool. You use whatever. I happen to do that one in InDesign, actually. It works great. I can control typography. I can do a lot with it. But any one of these tools here will really get you where you need to be, especially if you want to do interactive type of prototyping. Hot glue is good. UX Pen is great. But it's not about the tool. It's about the actual end product at the end of the day. So the takeaway, what's important about this? A successful Drupal project, you must, to have a successful Drupal project, you must be able to demonstrate effectively how your design will solve the business goals of the site, no matter what tool you use. It doesn't matter. So that's pretty much the end game. That's the end goal. So, I'm coming from a designer, theme background, and some of these decisions in the company I work for are kind of already made before I get involved, whether to use Drupal or Distro. But the reality is there's a lot of choices you have. And, I give you some basic ideas of how do you select between all the available options. And this is a small slice of what's out there. I just picked some of the popular ones, and, just to show. The questions that you need to ask when you're deciding if you're going to go with Drupal core, you're going to build something custom, or you're going to go with a Drupal thing, is how much time would it really save me to go with something, a distribution? And what that means is, is it, how difficult would it be to theme what somebody else has already spec'd out for you? Is it, are the templates there? Do I have to do a lot of rework, that type of thing? Is it easily maintainable by the client? Did they consider the UI enough? Is this something that that could have been done differently, or is something that is better that I just, you just go, build something custom? How is it abandoned? How often is the code updated? You don't want to download something and it's really not supported if it's a distro. So you want to make sure that you you consider all that. Will my client, will your client understand the UI or have a positive experience with this particular, implementation of distro? So these are questions you need to consider when you're deciding whether to go with Drupal core, or some distro. You have to understand what your skill level is to maintain it and support it. And the most important part is just, there's a lot of decisions to be made. Understand the risk that it is, for your timeline and your budget. It will really make the determination on which one you choose. I tend to look for, again, I'm just going to reiterate this. If I'm going to use a distro, I look for the feature sets, and I look for the theme, like if they have theme files, the CSS structure, is that really complicated, or is it better that I just roll my own type of thing? Themes and modules, that's a big one. It's like, well, how do I pick a theme? It depends. Are you doing responsive design? That's very popular now. Everything is on the mobile web, tablet, or mobile. So chances are you will be looking into that. There's a lot of tools and technologies out there, and I just pulled down a handful, some of the ones I've worked in the past. Omega is the recommended choice for me because I use that and I partnered with Singularity Grid, and using SAS and mixins is easier for me. But Foundations is good because it's prepackaged, and Adaptive Theme is good because you can manage things in the UI. It really depends on your client and how they're going to maintain it. If you're going to be doing the maintenance on it, they're going to be doing. So you have to consider all that when you're just picking a project or grid technology. This is an example again of a wireframe. Like the way that I go about deciding how things are going to work is, like, I will go in and I'll label the page and I'll break it down into small elements, just basic things like the menu. How do I get that to work? And then I go and I search on, in the Drupal community, and I say, well, okay, D, for example, they have mega menus, they have, OEM menus. They have a lot of different things that you can leverage to make that. Now, what I do is, what's really important is download the module and actually play with it. Try to set it up, like build it before you build it, kind of thing. Don't be afraid. Get in there, install it. Look at the theme setup, look at the theme files, and see how it actually works. And this is partly where you have to put on a little bit of developer hat, and just try it out. Just try to make it work. That's the only way you will really know if this particular contributed module will work with your timeline. but I break it, but I break it down into small elements, and then I just start specking it out from that point onward. Um, Again, to ask the right questions. You know, what's the level of effort to extending it? Is it easier for me to roll my own? These are the type of questions that you really have to ask to really put together an action plan that will have a successful Drupal launch. And really boils down to is what your team's level of comfortability of how comfortable you are with the module set feature set you have and what's out there. If you're able to easily manage that, that's really what's going to that's going to be the determining factor of how you move forward. One thing that people forget about when you're putting together a plan is administration. Your clients, at the end of the day, want a site that's easily maintainable and works for them. I put together some just helpful modules, just some things I use to get started. But it should be always simple. Everything, keep it simple. But you do want to consider that. It's an important, especially if you're in publishing. I've come from a publishing background, so editing and of the content was it's always important. So you have to consider that, and sometimes that's a separate project within itself. That's a whole nother, deliverable that you have to work against. It's just making sure that the user experience for the editing is where it should be. So you might have to do some work there, modifications. Those simple notes, keep it bare bones, in terms of using your editor. Don't put too much, I don't know, what everyone's experience level here is with publishing and editing content, but sometimes, I hate seeing so many options that you never, ever, ever use, and the person the developer or the client may have everything turned on and not even going to use it. You want to help them remove that clutter. You always want to make sure that you're providing the best experience possible as they edit their site. Again, make it easier for the worker bees. That's really what it boils down to. If the worker bees are not happy when you're building the site or when they're using it, then your project won't, they won't mark that as a success because it takes a lot for them to manage it and keep it up. So you want to speak to that, and that's all about knowing your client too. It's keeping the worker bees happy. So, client presentations. The things you really have to ask is, are you, you have to make sure you're talking to the person who's actually making the decisions. See, that's a mistake a lot of people get. You get in a room with people, and then you may have somebody who's attached to you to say, okay, this is the person making the decisions or your point person, but they consult with somebody, at the opposite end of the table, and they're the ones who really are driving the project. So you have to craft your conversation to not disregard the person that you were assigned or, that you're working with, but you have to really talk to a person who's actually making the decisions, the influencer. It's like my dad said one time, he said, the person who's driving the car may not be the one in control. It may be the person in the back seat giving them directions, where to go. So you have to know who you're actually talking to and who are the decision makers. And the way you can qualify that is that, if I deliver this feature today, will you have the ability to make a decision or approve it? And if they say, well, if they have, I have to run this through a committee, or, they have any number of reasons why they can't make the decision to go with, then you're not really truly dealing with the decision maker. They may want to get input from other people, and they may fit one of the other personality types, but you need to make sure that it's not somebody else on their team that's really making the calls, because if so, reach out to them, try to form a relationship with them, so you make sure that everybody is at the same table, that helping to make the decision, so you can get through your project very quickly. because that's a bottleneck in many cases. You know, this is basically the same, just reiterating. You know, it's like you see I'm like a boss, but I'm the boss. I'm not like a boss. I'm the boss. You have to deal with the person that's actually making decisions to really have a successful Drupal project or implementation. And in closing, mainly there's no blessing in haste. I say this time and time again. A lot of times we speed through a project, trying to get to the end, but if it gets, if you get your product to market and it's really not, it doesn't speak to the audience, or you don't attract the audience that you or please the audience that you want it to, then it's a failure basically. So you want to take your time and reiterate through all the processes to get your product to a point where it's speaking to the actual end user and helping them accomplish their goals. And I said, any questions or about a process or anything? Yeah.
When you're talking about user stories, you broke them down into those little pieces. They weren't long narratives. Are you thinking that those would go into like a backlog type situation for an agile project, or is it just how you thought they were best organized?
I literally just, for that, I can show you some other examples of user stories, but that I literally just took that off the internet. I think that's more for an agile project. But again, user stories can be extremely descriptive, or they can be extremely, very quick and dirty. It really depends on how your project and the time frame you have to organize it. Okay. Oh, so can I'm just repeating. So you want me to distinguish the difference between personas and user stories? Okay, that's a great question. Let me just go back, see. And personas are basically the demographic data about that person. It's just their background. It's their archetype, right? The user stories, on the other hand, are the actions, the tasks that they're doing, the things you need for them to do, or goals that they have. That's the difference. That makes sense? So one is identifying the person, and the other one is identifying their needs. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for coming out. Appreciate your time.